The terrorist attack in Baisaran Valley near Pahalgam on April 22, which claimed the lives of 26 tourists, including 25 Indian nationals and one Nepali citizen, has brought the India-Pakistan relationship to a dangerously volatile state. The assault, carried out by operatives of the Resistance Front, TRF, has drawn a severe response from New Delhi. In the immediate aftermath, India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, shut down the Attari-Wagah border, expelled Pakistani military advisors, and initiated a nationwide crackdown on operatives linked to cross-border terror financing. While Pakistan has denied any involvement, tensions are rapidly escalating, and the question now is no longer just about diplomacy or deterrence, but also whether either side can financially sustain a conflict should it erupt. Drawing from historical precedent, particularly the 1999 Kargil War, a contemporary 42-day limited military engagement in 2025 is estimated to cost India around 49,000 crore. This figure is not based on any official government disclosures, but on an independent journalistic assessment using publicly available economic data and military expenditure records from the Kargil conflict. India's estimated total cost of the 1999 war stood between 700 to 900 crore, depending on different source accounts. When adjusted for inflation over the 26 years that have followed, using the Consumer Price Index, CPI, as a standard benchmark, the 900 crore expense from 1999 equates to approximately 4,095 crore in 2025 terms, assuming a 4.55 times cumulative inflation increase over the period. Dividing this updated figure by the original duration of the Kargil war yields an approximate daily cost of 70 crore. However, this number only accounts for traditional military operations of that era. Contemporary warfare is fundamentally more expensive, driven by the costs of real-time surveillance, high-precision drones, satellite-guided missile systems, cyber defense units, integrated air defense platforms, and rapid mobilization logistics. Taking this evolution into account, and based on global post-1990s wartime trends, it is reasonable to apply a 6 times multiplier to the Kargil-based daily cost estimate, resulting in a modern daily expense of about 420 crore per day for a limited conflict in today's environment. When extrapolated over a hypothetical 42-day engagement mirroring the likely time frame of a short, high-intensity conflict, the resulting figure totals approximately 17,640 crore. But direct battlefield costs are only part of the picture. Modern conflicts also carry indirect and long-tail expenses. Emergency defense procurement, replenishment of spent stockpiles, fuel and supply chain costs, attrition of equipment, infrastructure repair, and inflationary effects across sectors such as energy, trade, and transportation. Factoring in these additional layers, the total expected cost climbs to a more comprehensive estimate of 49,000 crore. This figure, while significant, remains well within India's fiscal capability. India's 2025 economy is expected to touch $4 trillion in nominal GDP terms, with foreign exchange reserves of around $700 billion and an annual defense budget of 6.81 lakh crore. The 49,000 crore projected cost, therefore, represents roughly 0.6% of GDP and about 7.2% of the total defense expenditure. Substantial but far from destabilizing. The Indian economy's size, liquidity depth, and institutional ability to absorb shocks makes such a scenario economically viable in the short term, particularly if the conflict remains geographically limited and politically controlled. The situation looks far more precarious on the Pakistani side. As of January 2025, Pakistan's total foreign exchange reserves stood at approximately $15.6 billion, and its external debt has exceeded $124 billion. Inflation continues to average around 16 to 18% year-on-year, and the country remains under the oversight of international lenders such as the IMF. With a narrow fiscal buffer and a fragile external position, any sustained pressured increase in military spending would require either steep domestic cuts or external borrowing, both of which carry high political and economic costs. Assuming that Pakistan engages at just 1/4 the scale of India's potential military operations, a ratio inferred from historical comparisons like Siachen and Kargil, the country would still be looking at a minimum spend of about 12,000 to 12,500 crore over a 42-day window. That equates to nearly 3% of its current foreign exchange reserves, at a time when the country is already grappling with high inflation, a growing current account deficit, and intense political churn. Such a commitment could seriously threaten financial stability, spark capital flight, and invite further downgrades from credit agencies. From a military perspective, any future engagement would likely feature a hybrid approach. India's emphasis would be on rapid response operations, Preemptive air and drone strikes on terror launch pads, artillery and infantry action along the line of control, cyber operations and financial disruption of terror-linked accounts. Strategic objectives would likely be confined to deterrence and dismantling infrastructure without crossing into full-scale escalation. While the emotional and political drivers of conflict are always hard to quantify, the financial burden tells a different kind of story. A limited war, even if tightly managed, comes at a considerable economic cost. India has the capacity to bear this burden without upending its macroeconomic balance. Pakistan, by contrast, faces serious structural vulnerabilities that would be magnified by even a short-term escalation. In many ways, the economic gap between the two nations now acts as a strategic deterrent in itself. As military deployments increase and rhetoric sharpens, the critical variable may not lie in the strength of weapons or the resolve of leaderships, but in the balance sheets that ultimately decide how long a country can afford to stay in the fight.